All right, everyone. It is now 10 o'clock. Good morning. I am Aaron Blumberg, SWFLN's Continuing Education Coordinator, and it is my pleasure to welcome you to SWFLN's DigiRef Academy, Resources for Job Searching. We have a wonderful learning opportunity ready for you this morning with Dr. Naomi Gold. In her most recent position, Naomi Gold served as the Assistant Dean for Learning and Outreach Services at the Walsh Library, Seton Hall University in South Orange, New Jersey. Prior to joining Seton Hall, she served as the first-year experienced librarian at the College of Staten Island and as reference, research, and outreach librarian at Samford University in Birmingham, Alabama. During her time in Alabama, she simultaneously served as an adjunct instructor in the School of Library and Information Studies at the University of Alabama. Please welcome Dr. Gold and enjoy her webinar this morning. Dr. Gold?
Thank you very much, Aaron. I appreciate the opportunity to be with you today and to be speaking with you about this topic. And I want to start out by thanking everyone in Team SWFLN, including and especially Luli Castro, who works very hard to bring these kinds of educational opportunities to you. So thank you to Luli and to Aaron and to everyone. And thank you, Connie, for being with us today as well. We're going to talk about resources for job searching, and much of the contents of this webinar is also applicable to walk-up reference, but because this module or this session belongs very specifically to the DigiRef Academy, I'm going to emphasize the kinds of questions and situations, and then very particularly the kinds of resources that are most applicable to that type of reference. Pardon me. So I want to start out in discussing reference questions related to job searching by saying a few words about the emotional dimension of that kind of reference question. Maybe some of you have experienced this phenomenon yourselves in the course of carrying out reference or other library duties. But in my experience, job-related reference questions are among the most emotionally charged of any type of reference question. Usually when people are asking that type of question, it may seem too obvious to say, but I'll say it anyway. They're at some point of transition, possibly on some point of crisis. And so you may find both in person and digitally that patrons are more than usually stressed. Of course, in digital reference, since it's a very austere mode of communication that you're working with, you don't have the benefit of offering them your eye contact, your body language, the reassuring tone of voice. You have to work on conveying all that through the very austere medium of text. And that can be especially challenging. It will be very useful for you for both digital reference and, I'm going to say, for in-person reference, if you discuss with your colleagues, those of you who are involved in public services and very particularly in reference services, if you'll discuss with your colleagues the types of services that you agree to provide for people approaching with these kinds of questions. And the reason I say this is because it's been my experience and the experience of colleagues that what patrons who approach with job search questions have a lot of other needs as well. I've been asked to proofread resumes. I've been asked to offer suggestions about resumes. I've been asked for other types of advice. So have colleagues. And it may be that you agree among your colleagues that if the reference desk isn't very busy, you don't mind doing that sort of thing for a few minutes. Or it may be that you decide collectively that this isn't the sort of thing that you want to be doing, that you don't want to set that precedent. Not because you are any less service oriented, but because it's number one, not quite a fitting role for the reference librarian, but also because reference librarians are, like all librarians, are almost inevitably multitasking with very library-specific types of um, work during the day, and don't have that kind of time. And complications can set in when one librarian, out of an abundance of care, concern, and a sort of a real heart for service, begins to offer these kinds of extra services, and can put other colleagues in a difficult place when they don't. So it's useful with almost all types of reference, but with this one in particular, to decide among yourselves the sort of the criteria by which you'll handle certain kinds of questions, and the kinds of services you want to offer. So when you receive a message from a patron who's looking for a job, or has employment related questions, they can be articulated in many forms, and here are three of them. And I should say that with regard to those, what I'm calling, for lack of a better term, add-on services that you may or may not decide you want to offer, I think you'll be pleased to find that there are resources that I'm going to show you within the state of Florida that offer those services, and in fact offer them on a regular basis. There's at least one agency with branches all over the state whose whole purpose in life is to offer those kinds of services. So be heartened by that. And when you receive questions like this, I need some help with job hunting. Where can I find websites for job searching? Where can I get help with my resume? By the time we finish this session, you're going to have a very clear idea of how to assist these patrons and how to direct their questions. So I always like to start first, wherever possible, with the Florida Electronic Library, that suite of very particularly subscription-based databases to which individuals who don't have any kind of institutional affiliation would not have any access if it were not for the Florida Electronic Library. So, I mean, people who have affiliations with universities or institutions will often have that kind of access, but what about the rest of the citizens of the state of Florida? Well, thanks to the Florida Electronic Library, a very basic but in many ways robust suite of resources is made available to every person, every citizen of the state of Florida. And as it happens, the resources that are available, particularly in the area of career planning, are very interesting and really should be your first stop rather than the open web. So as you probably well know, this is what the Florida Electronic Library page looks like, and beneath all resources there are a series of specific topics, and careers is the third one, and the first four of the resources are on that screenshot, but there are actually 11 resources, and I've put little arrows next to the ones that I want to emphasize, and or that I think that you should make yourselves most familiar with. Of course, as you probably well know, a copy of this PowerPoint or the contents of this PowerPoint will be made available to you after the session. So don't stress about not being able to take notes quickly enough. So there are 11 resources, and the first one that I want to look at is available on the open web, and in fact, 3 out of the 4 of these are available on the open web. The one exception here is the Peterson's Master the GED test, and we'll talk about that soon. So the Employ Florida Marketplace really is a one-stop shop, and the reason is because it links all of Florida's state and local workforce services and resources. So you might ask, well, that's great, and why not stop there? And I'll explain when I talk about the next resource why, even though this is a one-stop shop, and even though many other sites in fact link back to this site, so you'll see as you begin to explore these resources, you'll see that Employ Florida logo represented on a number of other key job sites. But but there are good reasons for looking beyond this. I'll describe those in a minute. So this site is the product of a partnership of the Department of Economic Opportunity and CareerSource Florida, Inc. Pardon me. And the site includes precise information about 24 local, that is based in specific areas in the state, workforce development areas, and career source centers that are available statewide. There are almost 100 of them, and they offer in-person, one-on-one personalized assistance to job seekers. The site even offers a toll-free number, which really got my attention because it can be very difficult to find a phone number for almost anything these days, and the phone number here was not difficult to find, and it was in fact quite prominent. And along with the standard suite of, or really actually the most central task of this kind of site, which is to offer a variety of different kinds of job searches for open positions or available positions, the site has other features, resources that help visitors create a resume, veteran services, youth services, senior services, which I'm going to discuss in some length later. It's really as much about workers 50 and older as it is about our habitual notion of what constitutes a senior. It also includes services for employers who are seeking employees, and reemployment services, which refers in this context, in the context of this website, to services for people who are seeking public assistance and who need help moving out of that and into employment. So again, this website gathers together all of the state-based and local workforce services and resources. And this other site, the Florida Department of Economic Opportunity, as I was describing earlier, does in fact link back to that site, and the resources on this site are represented on this site. So why would I encourage you to explore both sites, and which are in some ways repetitive? Well, the reason is this. The organization on this site is somewhat simplified. Uh, this site is it's not badly organized. I wouldn't necessarily call it cluttered. Maybe not to my eyes or to our eyes. We're pretty astute users of websites. But for people who are not accustomed to being on the web a lot, for people who may have just learned how to use a computer, who don't use a computer very often, this site may represent a challenge. There's a certain learning curve. This site is somewhat simplified, and I've also found that a number of key links are very much more prominent more quickly. So, for example, there's a very prominent link for military spouses. We're going to talk about, especially in particular, veteran employment services in the state. But this link for military spouses really jumped out at me. A very prominent link for Teach in Florida, which provides resources for careers in Florida school system. A link for green jobs, and a link for something called People First, which provides resources for Florida state government positions. All of these things are represented in the other site. Here, they were simply easier to find. So what I want to encourage you to do when you go back and look at that list of 11 resources in the Florida Electronic Library is to take a little bit of time to explore the resources which look as though they are very much the same, or that almost inevitably link back to this source. And think about how those sites may yet have their specific function for different kinds of patrons, or the ways in which their materials are organized in possibly in a more helpful way, possibly in a less helpful way. So that's what I want to say about the distinction between a site like this and a site like this. I also want to tell you that another key link among that list of resources in the Florida Electronic Library is this link to the Florida Department of Economic Opportunity, which we know, of course, is one of the organizers and partners of this site. What stands out on this website is this map. It's a map of the various the CareerSource network offices. It's a CareerSource network directory. And I want to highlight this very particularly because this is your best answer, or unless you know of, you happen to know of other services immediately in your area, or if your library has some kind of weekly help desk. But in general, for these kinds of questions, your best answer to the question, well, where can I get help with my resume? Where can I talk? Is there someone I can talk to? Someone to whom I can address questions? This is your best answer. There's 73 full service career centers throughout the state, and then 27 satellites. The satellites offices merely offer a sort of reduced suite of services, and this map with clickable these hyperlinked offices planted throughout the state will help you to very quickly find that patron's local office. So in answer to the question, where can I get help with my resume? Where can I talk to somebody? This is the source that I want you to know about. You may have noticed as librarians that test prep books are hot items almost all the time, especially the up-to-date ones. They are used often. They sometimes disappear, sadly. They often don't circulate via interlibrary loan. Well, mostly they're reference books, so they wouldn't circulate that way. So when you find a test prep book that's available electronically, it's a really lovely thing for the patrons who need that resource. And in the course of developing enhanced job skills or for beginning to look for employment, many patrons may find themselves in the position of needing to complete their GED. And very fortunately, the Florida Electronic Library makes available the 2014 GED test prep book. And I wanted to be sure that you knew about this. It requires a login, and it, as every other type of test prep book that you've ever seen, it provides practice exams with answers and explanations and detailed descriptions of all the various areas that constitute this exam. It's not very often that a librarian is able to refer a patron to a test prep book available electronically, but here it's possible. That being said, pardon me, it's also true that many patrons may prefer still to have the physical book, and I can't really help you there, but I can certainly help you to help patrons at least begin to review the material in this format. I became very aware of, or shall I say, especially aware of employment issues that affect people with criminal records in 2015 when New York City passed something called the Fair Chance Law. It's also known as the Ban the Box Law. It's one of the country's most comprehensive measures aimed at helping individuals who have records, that is to say ex-offenders, secure employment after they serve their time. And what the law does, it ensures that employers have to evaluate job candidates based on their merits before they can ask about a criminal record. So what it does is it impacts private companies that have 4 or more employees, and it bans them from asking about past convictions on applications and during interviews. Only employers have to make a conditional job offer before they can run a background check or ask about an applicant's criminal history. So I'd seen in a number of places flyers and posters about this. And it's a very kind of critical topic in the broader area of job searching and providing reference in that area. So I thought that I would spend a little bit of time describing some of the employment services in Florida, particularly for people with criminal records. Florida does not have a ban the box law. It does have a statute that states that applicants may not be disqualified to practice or pursue any occupation or profession that requires a license, permit, or certificate because of a prior conviction unless, and you see the rest of the text here, it was for a felony or first-degree misdemeanor and is directly related to the specific line of work. And of course, in Florida, employers can still ask about criminal records in the course of an ordinary application. So if you are approached by a patron or texted or receive a reference, digital reference question from a patron asking whether there are any particular resources for people with criminal records. The answer is yes. There are two of the best ones that I found are these. One is called Project 180. It's a prisoner reentry program. It serves all of Florida, and it provides both workforce education and referrals, and also services related to financial literacy. You may be interested to know, I hadn't really stopped to think about this, and the number hit me sort of very powerfully, that over 30,000 people are released from incarceration annually in the state of Florida. The Florida Department of Corrections also offers a reentry resource, and it offers a comprehensive list of services, including job placements and referrals, and it offers job search assistance. It also serves all counties and cities in Florida. With this sort of patron, whether online or in person, and I've actually had some experience with this, you may find yourselves in the position of needing to offer more time, or more, shall we say, tutoring types of time than with other patrons, although it's entirely possible that other types of patrons may also require help. But I found that people who have just been released from prison or jail often are not necessarily computer literate, or haven't used a website, a sort of sophisticated website, or shall we say a information-rich website with a lot of pull-down menus and a lot of different options and a lot of different moving parts. And so you may find yourself needing to offer more than the usual amount of instruction by way of pointing to, via the digital chat platform, pointing to the various components of the site and walking the patron through the site. I'm thinking particularly of this Florida Department of Corrections site, so that he or she can use it more effectively. Of course, walking a patron through a site via chat is it's tricky, but it's possible. It's certainly not as intuitive or convenient as being able to share a computer screen with the patron, but you can provide verbal, that is to say written direction, and wait for the patron to find the element of the site that you've indicated, and wait for him or her to say, aha, yes, I see that. And it does take more time, but it may be necessary, and it's something you perhaps should kind of build into your expectations of providing this type of reference for this type of question. Another very important area for job searching and employment reference are persons with disabilities. You won't be surprised to learn that there are many sites and many services directed specifically at employment for persons with disabilities. There are also some sites that are less useful, I've found, and some that are more useful, more comprehensive, more credible. And I wanted to be sure to spell those out here. Of course, a search on the open web will yield a lot of results, and I spent quite a lot of time reviewing various sites, and these are the best, the most comprehensive, the most credible, as well as the most information rich that I've found. So there's Florida Abilities Work, and it very importantly includes contact information for a help desk, phone help from a help desk that provides assistance navigating the online system. Very important for persons who either may not have used a computer very often, who may have or may have sight impairments. It covers all of Florida's 24 workforce regions. Another excellent site that, as I was saying earlier, as do many sites, many excellent sites, links back to Florida Abilities work, is the Employ Florida site Disability Services section. So there's a whole section, an Employ Florida, that deals just with disability services. You probably would have discovered that on your own in your exploration of Employ Florida, but I wanted to highlight it here. Two other excellent sites are Ability Jobs and the Disability Job Exchange. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail about those and the various features. Again, I wanted to highlight these sites because I reviewed quite a few sites that claim to offer, possibly do offer, this kind of information, only to find that the data on the sites seemed dated or seemed kind of thin, or that I couldn't really zoom in on who was operating the site, under whose auspices it was operating. And any one of those things can be a bit of a deal breaker. I think especially when you're attempting to provide reference services for this kind of population, you want to be sure that you're focusing in on the best possible sites. Disability jobs is especially interesting. You'll notice, based on the screenshot I have there, that it's actively involved with or actively engaged by a number of featured employers, all recognizable companies, or almost all recognizable companies. It claims to be, and I haven't been able to verify this, but it claims to be the leading website dedicated to employment of persons with disabilities. I have to take them at their word. It seems like a very solid and information-rich site. It also claims to have the largest resume bank with featuring tens of thousands of job seekers with disabilities, from entry level to persons with higher degrees. And so what the site seeks to do, as much as it seeks to help job seekers, is to help employers find qualified candidates who may also have disabilities. The site also states very explicitly and in a very central kind of way that it wants very much to work with U.S. veterans with disabilities and injuries. Which brings me to my next group of my next sort of special population. And again, you won't be surprised to know that there are many sites and many services and many purported services uh, offering employment help for veterans. And again, some of the sites seem more solid, credible, and robust than others. I'm going to start with, at the top here, with very Florida specific resources. Employ Florida Vets. Again, it's a subset of the Employ Florida marketplace. It claims to be, and I think it's probably safe to believe that it is the hub of the state's workforce services for vets. But having said that, I want to also point to Florida's Department of Veterans Affairs. It links back to Employ Florida Vets, but it's very much worth your time and worth patrons' time to go to that site as well as an adjunct. If you happen to receive a digital reference request from persons outside the state of Florida, and of course that's entirely possible at any time when you're conducting digital reference service. It's one of the great challenges of digital reference service is that you can be contacted by anyone anywhere as long as that person has a web connection. Of course, there are federal, that is to say countrywide, resources for veterans, most particularly the Veterans Employment Center. You can see that's at vets.gov. The issue of employment services, job hunting for persons over 50 is really a very big deal. And one of the reasons it's a big deal is because there appears to be, based on material I've read and what I've learned anecdotally, a lot of under the table discrimination against workers or job applicants over the age of 50. What's very ironic about that is that, of course, people are living longer and working longer, but 50 in 2016 isn't the same as 50 in 1975. I mean, we'd all like to think that 50 is the new 40 or 60 is the new, I don't know, 60 is the new 45. But there's something really to that. It's people are living longer. It's not unusual for people to change careers multiple times. And many people embark on various types of new starts in life at the age of 50, whereas there was a time when 50 was really kind of on the cusp of moving into your golden years, and that's really not so true anymore. Nevertheless, I've read and heard anecdotally that there are some companies, I hope not many, but certainly some and certain types of job specialization areas that unofficially, of course illegally, discriminate against workers over the age of 50. So I noted earlier when I was talking about another site that offered senior services, and certainly there are a number of services that are directed at persons who are, shall we say, technically seniors. But I like to think about, based on this issue of the unofficial, under-the-table discrimination that sometimes goes on, as I like to think about job sites or agencies for quote-unquote older people, even in 2016. And you'll notice that Workforce 50 includes among its target audience baby boomers, as well as seniors and what it calls experienced workers. So those terms really take in a lot of different kinds of people. Baby boomers aren't necessarily, baby boomers can be in their 50s as well as in their 60s. And experienced workers, that term can mean a lot of different things, but I think that what it's referring to are people who have actually been in the workforce for quite a long time or a substantial period of time. As is the case with resources for disabled persons and resources for people who've served in the military, there are a lot of sites and purported sites aimed at this target audience. And I looked at many of them and took from that group that I looked at the ones that seemed to offer the most information, the most more types of services, and that had sort of a clear mission statement, and that had clear contact information, and that just in general seemed the most credible. So this Workforce 50 offers an abundance of resources, so many that getting through the site or just reviewing the various sources on the site can be an afternoon's work, if not more, if you have a patron who actually delves into the site and starts making use of some of the resources. There are resources on resume writing, for example, and you may ask yourself, or a patron may ask, well, since as an experienced worker who's kept her resume up to date, why would I really need that? Do I really need that? And one of the points made in an area of this website, and it's a good example of the kind of resource that makes the site valuable, is it points out that there are a number of ways to either both date your website and also to make your resume, to date your resume and to make your resume cluttered. So for example, there's certain kinds of terminology which belong to 10, 15, 20 years ago, but that are not current, and that can compromise the quality of the resume. It also points that this article available on the site also pointed out that it's really not always necessary anymore, unless a prospective employer calls for it, to list absolutely every job you've had, especially for experienced workers, because while the one-page resume rule doesn't apply so much anymore, 2 pages is considered in most cases, and by many different types of employers, acceptable. You don't want to go beyond that. So learning to edit out job experience that isn't necessarily relevant to the job being applied for is very important. Two of the other very valuable sort of bodies of information that I found on this site are articles about job transition. So that's transitioning from one type of work to another, which, as I was saying earlier, and I think as we all know, people are doing, well, they have been doing it for a while, but it's really become very common, and people often make that transition somewhere in their 40s or early 50s, and searching for federal government jobs. So again, when you receive the question via digital reference. Are there any job sites or agencies or services for quote unquote older people? Here we're going to use older as that catch term for people 50 and older, whether you feel old or not. So there's another site that's based off of a website called livecareer.com, and it's as part of that site, it's titled Job and Career Resources for Mature and Older Job Seekers. So here we have the term mature thrown in here, including baby boomers and third agers. I thought it was interesting the variety of terms that were applied to this group of job seekers, as though the sort of the industry and our sort of collective understanding of what constitutes older is still being worked out among us, and we're still trying to work out the vocabulary. Like the other site, it offers resources on resumes and career change strategies, but this site in particular offered offers resume builders, that is pages that allow you to input information and to build your website from the ground up, and templates and samples. I won't belabor the point about why it's useful and perhaps necessary for experienced / older / mature job seekers to revisit their resumes, no matter how well up to date they've kept them. I dare to say, especially if they've kept them up to date. So I think I'm sure you got the point, but do know that there are some really very solid resources here for helping patrons do that. Very specifically, there's also a section on this site that discusses taking up work after official retirement, work beyond retirement, which is also a growing phenomenon and not at all unusual for lots of reasons. Some of them are financial, and some of them are based out of the inherent desire of many individuals to remain active and vibrant in a particular way, or to continue to contribute to a particular field, or to take up a type of work that pays less than they were able to accept when they were working full time, but now that they're retired, they can go and say, do a job, work at a job, full or part-time, mostly part-time, that they didn't have the luxury of pursuing before retirement. I wanted to direct your attention as well, since I've been exploring very particularly resources in Florida, and very much more particularly resources in your area, that I came across a social service agency in Fort Myers, maybe some of you know of it, called the Dr. Piper Center for Social Services. And this agency, since it's a full service agency and does a lot of different types of things, I'm going to focus just in on the senior employment aspect. It's somewhat limited, but may be useful and interesting for you. And what it does is it offers free computer and technology classes for low-income seniors, and also resume and interview resources, and tutorials, face-to-face tutorials for completing online job applications. Now, those computer and technology classes are focused very particularly on helping low-income seniors develop a sufficient body of computer and technological skill to allow them to apply for certain kinds of jobs. So this isn't a kind of global job search service. It's a very targeted kind of service. And it's in Fort Myers, and I wanted you to know about it. All right, so here's another very probable kind of question. There's so many job search websites. Are there one or two best sites? Yeah, there really are a confusing abundance of job search sites. I'm not even, in this webinar, I'm not even going into something like a site like Monster, because I think that it's generally well known, and I wanted to go beyond that to home in on a couple of the what are regarded by people in the industry, and what I also found to be, based on my own exploration, a couple of the best sites that you can feel confident referring patrons to. And this first one is called Indeed.com, and its claim to fame, the thing that makes it special, is that it's an aggregator. So it aggregates postings from many other job sites: Career Builder, Monster, journalism jobs. It allows searches by state, city, and zip code. It allows users to create a login to save searches for future use. It also allows users the ability to post a resume so that recruiters that also use this site can find them. As is the case with, say, the Florida job searching websites, about which I said, well, there's some utility in going to some of these secondary sites that are not part of the large global site. And that's often true with job search sites. But this site, Indeed.com, appears to stand out in every article or every ranking that I've seen on this subject. I also know anecdotally, actually more than anecdotally, from one or two friends who've actually found jobs through this site. Another aggregator that I find particularly interesting is linkup.com. So again, the digital reference question, there are so many job search websites. Are there one or two best sites? Well, what LinkUp does is it aggregates listings specifically from company career web pages. So if you go to Pfizer, or you go to Bank of America, or almost any other large company, there will be a careers or employment link. And I think it's really wonderful that someone had the idea to aggregate the listings from a lot of different companies and bring those listings together onto one site. Very importantly, it pulls data exclusively from the company web pages. It doesn't, so there's no duplication, there are no out-of-date ads. I mean, we've all seen out-of-date ads from either institutions or companies that have been posted on secondary or tertiary web pages. I mean, it's entirely possible that a company's individual HR or employment site is out of date, but know that LinkUp pulls the data exclusively from the company's own web pages. So there's going to be less of that kind of frustrating duplication. All right. So again, let's think about the question, the potential question: is there a best place to look for just information about employment and job hunting? Where can I read some high quality material? And I want to tell you about the Riley Guide. The Riley Guide was founded in 1994 by a university librarian, interestingly, and her name was formerly Margaret Riley. It changed to Margaret Deacle. And what this site does is it vets the best online resources and lists them on the page. It also presents useful data such as salaries by career area, and there are a lot of original articles on various topics on this site. So this is a job search site, but really it's and it's interestingly it's the job search site on its website, or its search mechanism for looking for job listings is powered by Indeed.com. But what it's really good at is bringing together a lot of different materials about um, handling a job search, what you need to know when you're starting a job search, careers and education for certain types of jobs, as well as the kinds of things we've seen, such as cover letters and resumes, and dealing with the issue of networking, for example, which is a term and a sort of function that is talked about a great deal, but that is more difficult, as you may know, than it would seem. Not just because it's difficult to meet people, but because when you're networking, uh, you're actually really sort of needing something from the other person, and so it can be interpersonally somewhat awkward kind of thing. And you can read about that, or patrons can read about that and learn something about it from the Riley Guide. Aha, I see someone has raised a hand. Karen, would you like to? I'll take a break from speaking and you can type in your question, please. Excuse me. Connie Karen has said, yes, thank you for all the information. And uh, Karen has said the need for a job is a high thing at our library, but also making a resume. Yes. And as I was saying earlier, that's maybe very likely not something that a librarian is going to do, but based on the resources that you'll have taken from this session, you have many good places to which you can refer patrons. Is there a website that offers it for free? All of these sites, uh, well, yeah, what I've emphasized here, Karen, are freely available sites uh, that offer templates, and at least one of which offers a resume builder, but I don't know of any free services that will actually say format it and edit it for you. Now, some of those career centers within the state of Florida, for which we saw that map earlier, uh, again, I'm sure that they offer sort of tutorials, pointers, advice, maybe even proofreading services, but I don't know of any free service that will, shall I say, do it for you. Aha. And other people are. Chad says, I often refer customers to Word templates. Yes, and there are also, as I was saying earlier, specific templates on at least one of these one of the earlier websites. And Sally says Gale's career transition database also helps to create a resume with prompting if your library has the database. Yeah, that is an yeah, I alluded to this earlier, Karen, the issue of people needing this kind of help who are not necessarily computer literate to the extent that they need to be. And that is a real challenge because you have a more sort of basic kind of skill deficit, if I can put it that way, that has to be addressed before you can address uh, this primary question. I'm going to I'll get to I'm noticing all of your questions and comments here, and I really appreciate them. I'm going to press forward and take a break to address the comments and questions as they continue to come in. One of the other things that I want you to know about the Riley Guide is that it's cited by or actively used by the career centers of over 1,000 universities, government agencies, libraries, and career service organizations. So if you go to this site, you'll see a long list of universities and colleges that use it. Boston University, Columbia, Georgetown, MIT, Northwestern, Tulane, UC Berkeley, and then government organizations, State of California, State of Massachusetts, State of New York, the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs, the U.S. Library of Congress, the National Institute of Health. And so I think you can feel very confident about referring patrons to this site based on the list of institutions and organizations that also find it to be a useful, not to say credible, site. All right. I actually, you'll notice that the heading of this is incorrect, so I apologize. When I give the final PowerPoint to Aaron, I will have that corrected. But here's another potential question. Do you have any ideas apart from online searching? And I do, and so can you. You can share this idea. Temporary agencies, both national, such as the large ones such as Kelly, and ones that are very local to your area, and I've included a screenshot here of it's not a complete screenshot, but it's a partial screenshot of agencies in the Fort Myers area. That's another useful way to begin looking for employment. Often temporary employment will become permanent. Often temporary agencies are approached by companies looking for permanent employees. So temp agencies are not only temporary, not only part-time. In some ways, they function as employment agencies. Now, many of these companies do make provision for and even seem to prefer uh, uploading of a resume electronically. So we know that that's going to put certain patrons already behind the 8 ball. Nevertheless, it's entirely possible to walk into any of these companies. They all have storefronts. The large national companies have offices in cities all over the country. So apart from online searching, you could provide a patron with a list of some of these offices and invite the patron to visit the offices physically, personally, and to begin their inquiry that way. Yes, Linda, that's a very good point. They are great for entry-level jobs, but they aren't necessarily limited to them. And also, there are temp agencies that specialize in different types of employment. There are some that are primarily industrial. Uh, there are agencies that focus on factory work and construction. There are agencies that focus on accounting, for example. Uh, and then there are agencies that that have a wide variety of listings and a wide variety of companies in different types of areas that work with them. Another type of question you might receive is this: is there a way to learn about what it's like to work at a certain company? Oh, thank you for that comment, Linda. Sometimes they lack openings during the season, yes, since vacationers will work during their vacation. Oh, that's I didn't never stop to think about that. Interesting point. Thank you. So the website Glassdoor.com does a lot of things. It's a job search site, but the other thing that it does that's so interesting is it allows people to actually provide comments about, often very candid comments about what it's like to work for a particular company. And the kinds of, shall we say, quote unquote, companies that are reviewed by past and current employees is not limited to for-profit companies. There are many other kinds of institutions, including colleges and universities, that have been commented upon by users of Glassdoor.com. So here's what the original landing page, or the initial landing page, looks like this. And you can see it looks like, it's a search box that's focused on, well, particularly a job search. But those job search features are combined with reviews written by employees, as I've said, salary comparisons by industry, and then also interview preparation tools. And there are a lot of personalization features to this site so that you can create a login, you can save searches, you can have certain types of job listings emailed to you based on criteria you input. And to that extent, Glassdoor is also a very solid kind of employment search site, but it's that extra edge, that provision that it makes for commentary and rating by people who have worked for or do work for actually hundreds of different companies and institutions. So the answer to the question is there any way to find out, apart from talking to people who work at a particular company or institution, what it's like to work there? The answer is yes. There's no guarantee that the patron's particular target company or institution will be listed, but there is an abundance of them that are represented on this site. Another important question is this. Do you think I should have an online presence? Should I have a personal website? Uh, should I have an online portfolio? And if so, how do I create one? Well, LinkedIn, LinkedIn.com, as I'm sure many, if not all of you know, was really designed just for that. I mean, certainly, blog software is somewhat intuitive, and you can uh, create free blogs that have many different kinds of templates, uh, and create a sort of online portfolio or a professional job presence that way. But based on some of your comments, it seems to me that that would be a challenge for many of your patrons. Not only that, um, it's really LinkedIn's whole purpose in life to be just that kind of resource. It's relatively easy to create a professional online presence with LinkedIn, and there's some indication based on material I've read that it's very much to many, if not most people's advantage to have a professional online presence. There is some dispute or debate about it, uh, but it appears that certain HR departments or people on hiring committees regard with a certain amount of suspicion people who don't have any kind of online presence, people who are hard to find online. We all know we need to curate ruthlessly our online presence to the extent that it's possible. Uh, and so the prospect of having one more online presence may be frightening or daunting. But for patrons who think that they really want this and want a pretty intuitive way to do it, LinkedIn is the place to go. It also has a job search function, and LinkedIn will actually email jo potential jobs based on criteria that an individual inputs to that person's email address. It has many, many special interests groups that allow for participation in online conversations, and these are targeted, very specifically to professional matters. And I think that's one of LinkedIn's most important functions. Let's not even, I mean, Facebook is used for some of those things, but Facebook is, so many things to so many people, not the least of which is often a giant distraction. I think it can be very important to have this more limited, or at least constrained, I mean that in the best possible way, kind of site. And it can help people to avoid becoming an invisible job seeker with a minimal online presence, or at least an invisible job seeker with no professional online presence. So in response to the question, should I have a professional website or an online portfolio? The answer is, really only that person can answer the question for him or herself. But the best and easiest way to create it is through LinkedIn. Oh, thanks for that comment, Chad. That's with regard to Glassdoor. It's been my impression exploring Glassdoor that, and there may be some exceptions, but that the comments are not irresponsible. People aren't just venting. There is some venting, but it seems fairly responsible and uh, fact-based insofar as any of our experiences, going through our subjective filters are based on fact. So they're not just kind of online rants. And so I want to corroborate my impression. I want to corroborate Chad's comment with my impressions of that element of the site. Okay, that is our content for today. I'm happy to uh, continue to engage in some online discussion or respond to questions. As I've said earlier, the contents of this PowerPoint, and very particularly all of the resources from this PowerPoint, will be made available to you. I'm going to compile a list of them and give them to Aaron. You see my email address there. Do any of you feel free to email me if you have comments or questions. Well, thank you, Linda. And I didn't want to call you out at the start, Linda, but I noticed your name and I wanted to say hello. So I will remain online. But before I forget, I just wanted to thank everyone at SWFLN for this opportunity. Thank you, Luli, who again works very, very hard to bring these kinds of opportunities to the world of SWFLN. Thank you, Aaron, and everyone in the SWFLN office for your assistance. And let's see if there are any comments or questions. You are welcome, most welcome, Pauline and Christine. Jobs now in brain fuse. I don't have knowledge of brain fuse, but I'm going to make a note of it. Chad, thank you for that. Idalina, you're most welcome. Thanks for your participation.
And thank you, Dr. Gold, for a wonderful webinar. Some information and a sneak peek of what is coming up. Attendees, if you enjoyed this webinar, be sure to sign up for SWFLN's DigiRef Academy workshops, which will take place on September 8th. The morning session will focus on Reader's Advisory, and the afternoon session will focus on resources for the humanities. Also, be sure to register for the next STEAM webinar, The Music and Math of STEAM, on August 17th, and the Digital Copyright Part 2 webinar, which will be held on August 31st. We also encourage you to look ahead to August 24th, when SWFLN will be holding its first Yes for Diversity Day. Diversity Day will be a highly interactive day that will empower library staff and volunteers to reach out to diverse populations, increase skills of library staff in working effectively with diverse populations, and increase library programs and services to diverse communities in the local area. Be sure to register today. We encourage you to look at the upcoming webinars and workshops in months ahead and hope you're all able to join us for future training opportunities. As always, please feel free to keep checking our CE calendar on the website, the Florida statewide calendar, our Facebook page, follow us on Twitter, or look for your message from the Florida Library listserv. Thank you and have a wonderful day.
Thank you, Aaron. And folks, I'll stay online until, because I see you're all still in the room, so I'm going to, I'll be here with you, and I'm watching the text as it rolls in.